kindness in our heart, and we trust in these. We know love in our heart, we know peace in our heart, we know kindness in our heart, and we trust in these. We know love in our heart, we know peace in our heart, we know kindness in our heart, and we trust in thee.
Just like one big family, some are short, some are tall. We don't care, we live like a spiders when we are connected up from help you, help me. This is our community. Like sister and like brother, hand in hand and on and on. Each other support. We need one another, like the branches need the tree. Thoughts, you and me. All the thoughts, all the thoughts, you and me.
Lining up, standing in a queue. If you are not ready yet, then we will wait for you. Lining up, standing in a row. When we're all
Good evening and ni hao. A very warm welcome to this public talk to be given by Dzongsa Jamyang Khyentse Rinpoche. But first, there must be a safety announcement. In the event of an emergency, the theatre staff will escort you out of the building and into a car park over the road. Just follow their instructions. A few words about our speaker. The word Rinpoche is an honorific title. It's a bit like our word sir, and it translates as precious. Rinpoche has just come from Wanaka, where he taught more than 1,000 people. And straight after this, he will teach in Sydney and then in Mexico. Rinpoche has directed films, he has authored books, and is responsible for the education and welfare of more than 1,600 monks in Asia. One of Rinpoche's not-for-profit activities is translating the words of the Buddha into both English and Chinese. If you type the name Dzongsa into YouTube, you will find quite a few talks that has been given by him. I could say much more, but you came to listen to him. Please welcome our speaker, Dzongsa Jamyang Khyentse Rinpoche.
How long did it take you to pronounce my name? I mean, practice.
Practicing all day.
You know, Tibetans, especially Lamas, sometimes they have such a long name. I thought we have the longest names, but apparently not. Picasso has the longest name, right? Picasso, the painter? Oh, he has a really long name. You should check this out. It's really, really long. Anyway, I would like to express my joy and I don't know, gratitude for having this opportunity to talk to a lot of people here in Christchurch. I've come to New Zealand several times now. I have always been very curious about different countries, and also it's, I don't know, how the different countries manifest. This is my thinking presently, this is what I think. If many different culture, multicultural, living in one place harmoniously and, I don't know, functioning, if there has to be one place, I begin to think New Zealand will be one, because I don't know, there's something so open and something so embracing and receptive. Now, I heard that half of you who are listening tonight are like old Buddhists, die-hard Buddhists. The other half could be quite new. So this is a little challenging for me because I don't know how to actually make the evening fruitful for both. But I have already received more than 20 questions. I think there are questions from the audience also, but there are some questions from outside. I believe that this is being listened throughout the different part of the world. So I'm going to just say a few sort of, I don't know, introduction, if you like. I don't know, summary maybe is not the right word, but I don't have any way to put this properly. But anyway, I will say a few words first before we begin the question and answer. I think the title of our discussion tonight is something to do with the Buddha's vision. I think the vision sometimes, I don't know, maybe I'm not understanding it well, but anyway, the vision, the term vision seems to also have the connotation of some sort of a plan. Now, if you interpret the word vision as a plan, then I don't know whether Buddha and the Buddhists have any plan. This is something that I need to express. Buddhists have never been good with a mission, and I don't know whether we could talk about Buddhist vision and mission kind of vision. But tonight, the choice of the word vision is really much to do with how Buddha and thereafter his students or the followers sees the world. And I think this may be interesting for some of you who are new, how Buddha saw or how Buddha interact or how Buddha relate to the world. Now, there are many different elements of how Buddha saw the world. We don't have time to go through all of that. I will choose few that I think is crucial. Buddha, in Buddha's view, he saw that there's something called mind, which is really probably the most important. So, yes, it may be kind of it's very, I don't know, for me to say this sounds very simple, but it's actually not. I think, I don't know whether the world has paid enough attention to this thing called mind. Yes, we do. We have paid so much attention to the matter and the material and so on and so forth, but the mind, this was something quite very much stressed by the Buddha 2,500 years ago. And this is one of his vision or his view. He put so much emphasis on this. And I think this is something that we should also pay attention, because mind is, as many Buddhists would say, mind is, it's in some way, it is something that we are stuck with. You cannot not have. I mean, you can sort of, if you don't want your fingers, you can chop. You can sort of take off your shirt or whatever. You can sort of not have matters. But mind is, you cannot really eject it. You are stuck with this. Sometimes one almost wish to be like a table, no mind. Therefore, if I'm not using this table, the table will not feel like I'm being rejected. Table don't, if I bring another better table, table will not feel jealous. If all of us leave from this room, table will not feel lonely. And also, but if I'm overly using this table, table is never going to think that I'm overly used and abused. So on and so forth. So see, but unfortunately, we are not like a table. We are stuck with this thing called mind. So mind is a bit of a problem sometimes. But other times, mind is incredibly precious and so good. It is this mind that really appreciates simple things like a breeze, river, I don't know, smell, flowers. In fact, Buddha, in certain way of presenting so-called mind, he even went as far as saying that this mind that we have, you have, I have, this mind is the Buddha. That's it. Buddha is not a figure. It's not historically bound. It's not some sort of a savior, or definitely not a, well, you can say Buddha is a creator in the context that the mind is the creator. Everything we have is basically created by mind. So anyway, this is one view that Buddha had. Something quite important, that, and something that could be rewarding if especially the modern people can pay some attention to. Then another thing, Buddha, now this is a little bit long. This mind, therefore, these beings, those who have this mind, has preference. We prefer happiness over pain, anxiety, suffering. So we prefer happiness. Now this gets more complicated because then happiness, the mind interprets happiness totally in different way. So this is why what is happiness for you, maybe not necessarily happiness for me. In fact, many times what is happiness for me may be a suffering for you. And not only it's different individually, but within one individual being, what is good and what is happy and what is blissful today will be not necessarily happy and blissful tomorrow, so on and so forth. So this is why, I don't know, especially for those who are new, whether you have ever heard something called Four Noble Truths, which is a very classic Buddhist sort of testament or a Buddhist teaching. And the first noble truth is actually what we call know the dukkha, meaning know the pain or know the suffering. No. Now, this is a very important. I think I would say this is something very unique about the Buddha. He wasn't really talking about you should really try to get rid of suffering, or there's a, way should, instead of saying that, the most important statement he made was know the suffering. Now, for a lot of us, suffering or the pain that are obvious, such as headache, stomach ache, war, famine, I don't know, poverty, obviously they are suffering, and we know. That, I think, is easy. But what we don't know is what we call bliss and happiness most of the time. Actually, according to Buddha, they are also not really completely satisfactory. What we call bliss, what we call happiness. So, strictly speaking, the Buddhists will say that what we call happiness is actually in the category of suffering. So therefore, the statement, "know the suffering," became kind of important, because one would feel, oh, it's easy to know the suffering. Yes, if it is like gross suffering, such as hunger, thirst, or I don't know, headache, so on and so forth. But when you are having a good time, to know that as a suffering is much more difficult. Now, there's something even more complicated than that. That is any kind of neutral feeling, neither pain nor pleasure, just neutral, feeling, or yes, feeling, mainly feeling, like, I don't know, sleeping, spacing out, whatever, not necessarily painful, not necessarily happy, but even that, according to the Buddhists, the Buddhists may put this into the category of what we call dukkha. Now, I have to tell you this. I'm speaking in English, which is not my, original language. So I have that deficiency, first of all. And secondly, the language is going to be a big barrier. It has always been. So the word like dukkha is translated as a suffering by a lot of people, but it's not really suffering as in what a lot of people think. But anyway, I think some of these problems, it will take some time to sort it out. But okay, so I'm talking about Buddha's vision. So this is what Buddha sees. Everybody wants to be happy. Nobody wants to be suffering. Now, this, but what Buddha is saying is that, yes, it's important to be happy, but it's very important to be beneficial. To have happiness is good, but also to have something beneficial. This he stressed a lot. To be happy is important, but to have something that benefits you. This is equally important, if not more important at times. Now, beneficial and happiness, they are very related, but at times they also contradict. So this is something that I thought I will just briefly mention to you before we go to the question and answer. Because a lot of the time we find ourselves really, really working hard for happiness. But many times we don't really work hard for something that will benefit you. I think that's very commonsensical, actually. So you may ask, what is beneficial? Okay, we got the point of, something that will make you happy. And I've already told you that for different beings, happiness means different things. Now, what should one do to collect or to have something that is beneficial? So this is another Buddha's vision or the Buddha's view on life. Buddha what Buddha is saying is, yes, it is possible to make ourselves happy by going to think about the past. Memories, especially good memories, I guess. And also think about the future. It's possible to make yourself happy. But to make things beneficial, not that important to rush to the past and to think about the future. It's not that beneficial. This is his view. So what really brings you something that is beneficial? Buddha's argument is not to go to the past, not to go to the future, but to be here in the present. Because after all, this is all you have. The past is gone, future hasn't arrived. So what's the benefit of thinking of the past and the future? So let's just put everything towards what we have right now. Okay, now this is very much, okay, this is also related to another Buddha's view, which is Buddha's sort of argument is that only by being in the present, one will see the truth. The moment you go to the past and the future, chances of you getting entangled with the false stories, imagination is much, much higher. Only when you are in the present, you have much more chance to see the truth. Okay, of course, now the word truth is such a big word. I don't know what you are getting when I'm saying the word truth, but just some very, very basic Buddha's view of truth. So, okay, so not to go to the past, not to go to the future, but to be in the present and to relate to the truth. What kind? Well, how about just accept that we are all going to die. So this, statement like this has also earned some really bad marketing for Buddhists for a long time. It still does. They always think the Buddhists are always very morbid, I don't know, very sad and but sad or not, the truth is you and I are going to die. And might as well just accept it, you understand? So it's like narrowing down to the present. And something worse, as if the fact that you and I are going to die is not enough bad news, there's something worse than this. We don't know when we are going to die. That's much more worse. If we have a time, like, okay, July 22nd, you are going to die, then, it's much easier. You can plan and you can, but that's not the case. Most of the time, actually, 99% of the time, we don't know how we are going to die, when we are going to die. And by the way, death, I'm only bringing it just because it's a very dramatic example. Actually, it's not only when we talk about being in the present, we are not only talking about the death, we are talking about the changeable nature of everything. Everything. We have changed so much, and we are changing all the time. I'm not talking about skin. I'm not talking about hair color. I'm talking about just everything, values, just everything. Once upon a time, you were playing with a water gun. You were carrying a Barbie doll. Now, you are not carrying Barbie doll. Now you have a different toy. Now the Barbie doll is like not at all important. Once upon a time, you cried, you screamed, that's the only thing that matters in the whole wide world, the Barbie doll, the gun, whatever. But that value has changed. Now we have a different value. Tablecloths, I don't know, whatever, all kinds of relationship. the value of relationship. And a lot of change comes, of course, the main change comes from inside, but there's also outer, cause and conditions that forces us to change. And so on and so forth. So anyway, this is one way to really face the truth and face the present moment. Now, the second way to be truthful to ourselves is that nothing will satisfy us 100%. Nothing. And we are not only talking about food and clothes, we are not talking about this kind of, the usual luxury goods. We are talking about our values, political system, philosophical system, nothing. I mean, just look at past 10 years, past 20 years. I still remember when the world of internet arrived. Everybody, including myself, was so happy because it saves so much trouble. And it's like now that we can just read about everything free. And, the information is readily available. You can communicate with the world instantly without really anybody knowing what you are doing, so on and so forth. But now we are going through a situation where, is that a good thing? Are we having more fun or are we having less fun? Are we getting more stress? So on and so forth. See, nothing really satisfies 100%. But you see, all this, what I just said, these are all in one way on the intellectual level, right? On the intellectual level, it's sort of, I can convince you through talking like this, and perhaps you will have to sort of agree. Yes, of course, everything is changeable. You have to agree with that. Nothing satisfies you 100%. You will have to agree with this because that's the truth. But this kind of knowledge, this kind of realization is only on the intellectual level. So it does not really help us when there is a problem. It doesn't really penetrate our habitual mind. So now, how do we tackle with this? So this is why the technique of not going to the past, not going to the future, and being in the present. And when we talk about the present, we are talking about today, this year, this week, right this very moment, the fact that I'm here, you are there, just everything. Being in this very moment. Not thinking about future such as maybe I should pick that up, pick that flower up and put it here. Not really thinking like that. Just completely acknowledging that it is there and the table is here and I'm here. And even more, it gets more refined when we say present moment. We are not only talking about the present moment of today and this evening, but the present moment body. You have a body. And most of the time, we are never happy with the body. The reason why we are not happy with the body is because we are thinking about the past, or we are thinking about the future. How it should look like, how much it should weigh, so on and so forth. using the past and the future as a reference. Never just be in the body and be comfortable with the body. And not even more than that, just being in the body. And then it gets even more refined. These are all the Buddha's view or the Buddha's vision of life or the world. Even more subtle than the body is just acknowledging and knowing we breathe. See, all this sounds very, very simple. But these are so beneficial. It may not necessarily bring you happiness, but this brings you something called beneficial. And even more subtle than your breathing the air, this cognition, the mind that you have. You have thoughts, you have mind, you are cognizing something right this very moment, just observing that. So in this way, very important Buddha's view or the vision of life is really, really just be with this moment, this truth. Now the third one, third kind of view or the vision of the Buddha is to so that we will live with the truth, is that appearance is deceiving. This is actually an English expression, and that is, I think, a good way to approach to this Buddha's argument. Basically, whatever you see, however you project, however you hear, however you taste, whatever you feel, however you smell, however you, I don't know, yeah, basically, however you project, perceive, is just your perception. It is not, this is only your opinion, it's not how it is. Basically, what Buddha is actually saying is everything is just a hallucination. Now, I think the hallucination in the English dictionary, which I checked again and again, this is something to do with a mental disorder, right? So when we talk about, see, I was telling you earlier, mind is very important. Remember, the table doesn't have mind. We are stuck with it. But this mind is not really in order, so to speak. Why? Because it's going to the past and going to the future. We just don't let it remain orderly. So actually, if you are rushing to the past and the future, your mind is in disorder. So the Buddha's conclusion is whatever we are experiencing through your eyes, ear, tongue, mind, body, is mere hallucination. It's a projection coming from disorderly mind. Now, this is sort of a small, very, very rushed summary of what we in Buddhism, we call prajna, wisdom. Now, this is not enough. The Buddha's view or the Buddha's vision is this is not enough. Equally important to this wisdom is what you need, compassion. And I think the word compassion maybe is not really doing the justice, translating the word karuna. I think the easiest way to approach to the Buddhist concept of compassion is empathy. This is like so okay, the wisdom of knowing whatever we have been discussing, plus empathy. Basically, you know, very mundane, down to earth empathy we can start with. Basically putting your feet in someone else's shoes. Now, this is difficult, really, really difficult, because because we all have a different cause and conditions. We all comes from a different background. We all come from different habitual patterns. So I think we have this tendency that everybody must think, act, and behave, and I don't know, value what you think, what you behave, what you value. And this creates not only international problem, domestic problems it creates relationship problems between parents and children, between lovers, between, I don't know, colleagues, lacking of the empathy. So anyway, this, what we call wisdom and the method, is like the Buddha's view or the vision to make the world beneficial and also happy. I don't know whether everything what I've just said was cohesive. Anyway, let's begin with some of the questions. Maybe I talked too much.
Thank you, Rinpoche, and welcome to Christchurch. My name is Simon, and I'm going to do some question wrangling tonight. Like Rinpoche said, we already have quite a few questions that have been submitted, and we're going to try and get them through as efficiently as we can, and hopefully we'll be able to take some from the floor as well. If you're thinking about asking a question, please think about making it as concise as possible, because we're more interested in hearing what Rinpoche has to say, and make sure it is really a question. So the questions we've got are in two groups. There's one group that have come from the international community and one that have come from the Christchurch Buddhist Centre. And we'll alternate between those. I'd like to welcome Alex to the mic, who will ask on behalf of Christchurch people. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Simon. Good evening, Rinpoche. The first question from the Christchurch community is, are we approaching the end of something in the West? How are we, as Dharma practitioners, best to relate to the things as they fall apart in the West? What are the most important skills to nurture?
I'm sure. I mean, I don't need to, say this. We are all experiencing a lot of changes. But end is a bit too strong word. First of all, as a Buddhist, don't really believe in beginning and don't really believe in end. So if we are talking about something like Armageddon, I don't really think that will happen. I don't really believe myself. I think the world will change so much. I heard recently that right now we are addicted to Instagram and TikTok and all that. But in about 10 years' time, it's the Instagram and the TikTok or all the AI, they are going to be attached to us. Now that's going to be very interesting when your machine feels rejected. So that's going to be very interesting. So on this context, I think there is definitely a change. And it's not only going, the change is not only happening in the West, it's, you know, the world has become so big and so small together. And I think that we will experience this together. I'm a Tibetan Buddhist, so therefore I practice what we call Tantric Buddhism, Vajrayana Buddhism. So according to the Vajrayana, right now is the most volatile time. It's the most sort of, volatile time, changing and so much up and so much down. And according to the Tantra, volatile time is really good to also reap a lot of profit. This is the time that if you pay even a little bit of effort, you can really benefit a lot. So I think we could always see this in a very encouraging and positive way. This is what I think. I'm not necessarily trying to give you encouraging words. This is what my belief.
I understand that India is the birthplace of Buddhism. Why then is less than 1% of the population of India Buddhist?
I hope there's no Indians here. This is an important question, you know, for those who are interested in, what is it? I don't know, history or whatever. I would say there are a lot of different reasons. One important reason is, like Jainism, Buddhism is very, very, you know, first of all, it's a bit like this. Buddhism in its, what do you call it? Heyday, maybe heyday is not the right word. Initially, in the beginning, during the, let's say, Nalanda University time, like we are talking about 6th century, 5th century, 6th century, 7th century, so-called Buddhism, which we now, by the way, I need to tell you this, there is no word such as Buddhism or Hinduism. This is sort of created by, I mean, most of the older Buddhists knows this, but for those who are new, words like Hinduism and Buddhism, they are basically created by Abrahamic people. I think especially the word Hinduism. Anything, I think there used to be a Sindh, River Sindh near Pakistan. So the Christians, British especially, thought any religion that any kind of special, strange belief or non-Christian, whatever belief beyond that Sindh River is Hinduism. So that's how Buddhism got ended up in that basket of so-called religion. In the past, one could easily trace this in the Buddhist scripture, just as how MIT, Harvard, Auckland University, who really is looking for stars, I don't know, astrophysics, I don't know, biology, virus, Buddhism, so-called we call now Buddhism and Hinduism or Jainism, they are all like after the truth. What makes people suffer? What makes, you know, people, basically that. So this is why also the Buddhists, Jain, so-called Hindus, they got a lot of funding from the kings and so on and so forth, right? So later on, Buddhism ended up becoming into this religious basket. I'm quite sure in about 500 years' time, Harvard, MIT, Auckland, Sydney University, whatever they found will be almost laughed at as a religious finding. This can happen, right? But anyway, to answer this question, so Buddhism especially may be not directly anything beneficial for the social issues. What I mean is like Buddhism does not have things like, okay, a society should be this. If somebody breaks this code of conduct, then they should be punished this way. Or if somebody does good, they should be rewarded that way. You know, stuff like this, Buddhists don't really have. Actually, Buddhists don't have that at all. Buddhists don't even have a marriage ceremony. Buddhists more likely will have a divorce ceremony. You understand? Because Buddhists talk about impermanence, remember? So how would Buddhists have a wedding ceremony? Okay, you two are married right now, but this evening you may get divorced. That's the truth. Market for Buddhist wedding is finished. Nobody wants to go to that kind of wedding. I'm giving you an example. So the Buddhism has never been that into social thing in its core. Things like shunyata, words like a Buddhist wisdom of emptiness, you can't use it as a threat to campaign politically. You understand? How do you do that? Also, Buddhist concept of karma. If you don't vote for me, you will go to hell. No, it doesn't work like that. You understand? So probably this is one of the reasons why Buddhism sort of decayed. But I'm just generalizing very much because interestingly, in China, Buddhism really survived throughout till now, even though Chinese have gone through so much up and down and lot of bloodshed and all of that throughout Chinese history for some reason. But I think there is a particular reason for that, because Chinese somehow managed to make the Buddhism into something social. Like with Chinese are into this harmony, Confucius values, so somehow they interwoven this. So this may be it, I'm just guessing. Another one is Mughal invasion. Yes, 900 of them. And the British colonization. But interestingly, the British colonial also are responsible for discovering places like Bodh Gaya, you know? I forgot this English, the name of this English guy. Anyway, so there's that. And then I think there was also a politically motivated Hindu may have some, what do you call it, reason why there was, oh yeah, I'm forgetting a big one. A big reason why Buddhism is not less than 1% of Indians are less Buddhist is because India has so much choice of gods. There's something like there's about 1,400,000,000 Indians, and for each Indian, I think they can get about few thousand gods, something like that. I don't know, you can Google it, but there's so much. So it's not that mainstream, so to speak. So this is just a very generalized answer. Please, I think it's an interesting question. I have always wondered this one. It is sort of coming back, in small pockets, but I don't know whether I should be happy about that or whether I should be wary about this, because the way it is coming back is also, there's a lot of, let's put this way, Buddhism presented it like a shallow swimming pool. You know, you don't know how to swim, you want to swim, so I built lots of shallow swimming pool where you will never sink. So there's a lot of this mindfulness business, which is shallow swimming pool. Now, suddenly, if you want to really swim in the ocean or the river, there's a problem. So there's a lot of that. Okay, I hope I answered that one. I don't know.
How should we relate with artificial intelligence as it's developing so quickly? And from a Buddhist perspective, could it develop its own mind and consciousness?
Okay, my personal opinion, this has been like that for a few years. It may change by next year, who knows. Artificial intelligence is the best news for Buddhism, I would say, because Buddhism always has been really yelling about identity. We have always been talking about the biggest problem of the biggest suffering, cause of the suffering is the identity. Remember, if you read something like a Heart Sutra, it's all there, identity. So I think artificial intelligence will really force people to go beyond some of their artificial identity. Doctor, nurse, I don't know, job. And somehow it may force them to think and really go inside the mind that I was talking earlier that gets neglected. Remember, I said there's something called mind that you so neglect, which is so powerful, but we have been neglecting it, and probably artificial intelligence may force us. Now, the second element of the question, whether the artificial intelligence can create consciousness, this I don't know, but if they do, it's not going to make difference for Buddhism, because Buddhists have always said the sentient beings does not necessarily have to come between, egg and sperm, or sentient beings can come, well, in the very general sense, Buddhists talk about for birth. One is the way we are born, father, mother, all that. The other is like what we call like a moth, like through, what is it, moisture. And then there's things called miracle birth. So artificial intelligence, okay, I will create some questions. Will the artificial intelligence be able to make a consciousness? Probably they do, but that's not going to make much difference. It's still okay. But the thing is, I need to define here that this artificial intelligence consciousness must have a ignorance. If this artificial intelligence cognizance have an ignorance, Buddhists can rest peacefully. Because if that consciousness have an ignorance, that consciousness will have a fear. That consciousness will have expectations, hope, and fear, etc., etc. Then easily that artificial intelligence consciousness will become can be qualified as the disciple of a Buddhist guru, easily.
Is Buddhism relevant in today's world, especially in the West?
The word West is so difficult. I mean, when I meet some of my so-called Eastern people, like Chinese and even Tibetans and Indians, they are much more Westernized than some of you who you think you are Westerner. Really, this is true. Culturally, they're more patriotic. I'm having argument with them almost every day. Patriotic, just in every level. So I don't know, when we talk about the West as in geography, like where the sun sets and so on and so forth, that I don't know. But as we have been discussing, earlier, I think if people are interested in knowing the truth, I would say Buddhism really have done a good job in analyzing the truth, especially inward phenomena, things like mind. And there's a lot to offer to the geographical West or a cultural West, whatever you call it, basically modern people. But I just want to add this. What I think West or modern people, I should say, what they should do is they should really go beyond what they call rationalism. I feel, I don't know, I'm teasing you, some of you Westerner, a little bit, so you can always, you're very welcome argument. I feel that rationalism, believing in logic, believing in rational, whatever, assessment, somehow could go further. And that's where I think so-called the modern people have stopped. So I don't know. And this is not so good because yes, logic, rationalism is good from here to here. But at the end of the day, when I was studying Buddhist logic, I studied Buddhist logic 6 years. It's a big subject. The first page it says, prepare to accept that the logic is the greatest tool to make you the most stupid. So you see, I think it's really important because rationalism, there is no pure rationalism. It's all decided by consensus, usage. Yeah, of course, it's rational to use an espresso machine if you want to have an espresso, but that's just some dude found a bean and roast the bean and crushed it into powder and put water. What's so amazing about that, you know? So I think if we could go there, and now I'm talking a little bit like Tantric Buddhism, Tantric Buddhist, I think going beyond rational thinking will probably open the door for some sort of a magical. And this is something, like, I'm sure, especially New Zealand natives, sometimes maybe you are not even aware of it because you are too close. Coming from India the other day, straight to Vanaka, and then this amazing light, the lake, and the wind, suddenly hot, suddenly cold. It's so magical. It was like, wow, this is life. You do not need any sort of reason or logic. And I think this need to be, I think this is the part that we maybe, the scientists, politicians, rationalists are systematically destroying. Anyway, I lost the track of the questions, but doesn't matter. Please ask the next question.
Is the modern progressive or postmodern culture a friend of Buddhism or a threat to it?
I think what I just answered, yeah, I have personally invested sort of time and energy in really introducing Buddhism to the Western academic, because as much as I was just telling you earlier about how we should really go beyond rationalism, safest way to approach to any kind of ism is through a little bit of a hearing. And so critical thinking is definitely important, especially for the beginners. But I think it's important to be critical to critical. Because otherwise we just become a blind devotee towards rational critical thinking. But West has the tradition of analyzing, and West really, really try to position themselves as someone who appreciates objective world, right? Which is good intention, but we have to really, really we really have to accept, are we really objective? That's difficult. Buddhists would say, especially there's a school called Chittamata Buddhism, there is no such thing as objective. The moment you assert something, moment you think. So the other day, somebody was asking me, when did the Big Bang, about the Big Bang, when did it start? I was saying when somebody, whoever brought the name Big Bang, that's the time that it started. So, yeah. So I think, okay, put it this way. Yeah, let me share it this way. This is kind of good. I always like this part of Buddhist construction. The Buddhists say that analysis, meditation, practice, all of whatever the Buddhists teach you must always erode itself. So basically what Buddhism is saying is that your most vicious and the final obstacle for your awakening is Buddhism itself. It's like, if you want to go from this end to this end, let's say to go to another shore, you have to take a boat. But once you reach there, you have to hop out, right? If you're still standing on the boat because it's so beautiful, yes, of course you are enjoying on the boat, but you are not on the other shore, which is your goal. So just like that, Buddha himself said, Buddhism, the Dharma, should be like a boat. You use it, once you reach there, you discard it. Otherwise, you are a Buddhist, you are not a Buddha. Yeah.
Is karma predestined, or is it the result of free will? Karma.
What?
Karma, is it predestined or the result of free will?
Mm-hmm. I've never thought I'd be fried like this in Christchurch. What do you think? Okay. Predestined. It's a very important question. It really is. I wish we can really sit here like few days because Buddhist teaching on karma is probably the most difficult. It's the most difficult to teach. You know why? Why is it most difficult? Because it's like this. Let's say, I think some of you have heard this millions of times, so you can just go to the toilet or something. So it's like, Let's say you have a dream, and in your dream, you go and order a coffee. And you order, especially if it is in Seattle, there's 6,000 menu, like with this milk, that milk, how hot, how grand, how tall, how short, all that. So you take time, you really choose all of that. And then you order, you get your order, you drink, probably it's too hot, I don't know, whatever, all of that. And then you wake up from that dream. Now it's easy for me to say that was a dream, right? Obviously. So for me to teach the Buddhist concept of shunyata, emptiness, it's not bad. I think it can be taught with a little difficulty, but it's like really talking about post-dream. So it's easier. Now, in the dream, while you are dreaming, while you are ordering your coffee, and while you are drinking, I come in the dream. And then I talk about, hey, how come the coffee is not leaking from that cup? Then you say, obviously, this is a real cup. It's not real cup, it's in the dream. So to really talk to you that this is not really happening in the dream is difficult because you ordered a cappuccino and it was a cappuccino. You ordered 2 coffee and it was 2, not 5. And the cup holds it. It's not leaking. All this means it's real. And now somebody nagging you that this is not real. It's difficult. So it's a bit like that. Karma is very, very difficult to discuss. And then plus all the generalization about, things like, if you eat, I don't know, a chicken this life, if you kill a chicken and eat chicken this life, 500 lifetimes, you'll become a chicken, and all that sort of generalized, simplified teachings that are necessary, by the way, because you have to sort of make dramatic teachings sometimes to the different audience. So that doesn't help, right? Also, every time we talk about a karma, we have no choice, but we have to talk about time. Time. And time for Buddhism is an illusion. You know what I mean? So, I mean, this can be actually discussed even, let's forget Buddhism for now. Like even scientifically, you commit a crime yesterday. Let's say you murder somebody. Police are searching for you. They found you are sitting here and they arrest you. You could always say, hey, yesterday's me is gone. Today's me. This is a different, you can sort of say that, but it's not going to work, right? So it's like this, you see that illusion? So the reason why I'm going on all about that is because this predestined and what? Free will? That does not really apply here because, so karma is neither predestined nor free will. Karma is an illusion that you ended up so zealously entangled thinking is real. Go back to my example of coffee thing. During the coffee, you think it's real. And yes, it is an illusion, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to bother you. It will. It does. Because it's an illusion, it actually can bother you really well. If it is not an illusion, if it is a real thing, it may get stuck outside and not being able to come in from that small door. But because it's an illusion, it can just, this is why it's so powerful. I'm still not answering the question. So, okay, let's say, it's like cooking an egg. Predestined? No, you can always not cook egg. But once it is 99.99 cooked, then I don't think it is, then you don't have the free will to not, like go back to the original state. Although tantric people will actually disagree with this, but let's not go in there. Let's not go in there. But that's how it is. So free will, no. As long as you are subject of something called cause and condition, you are manipulatable. And you are already being manipulated. So therefore, you have no free will. But having said that, you have all the power to, let's say, be in the present moment. Remember I was talking earlier? That is quite an important advice, because the moment you are in the present, then it actually causes the derail of this chain, this like a train-like, cause and condition. It really confuses them. So this is why, because right now, past, future, present, but then you immediately go to the future or the past. So thoughts, they come like a chain, and it really does so fast. Water, where is it from? Tap. In New Zealand, you can also drink from the tap because it's very fresh. But in Delhi, no, it's not possible. See how many thoughts. And the Delhi government, they are so corrupted. I wish they learned from here. And you see, this is how my thoughts are working now. Delhi, when the children are asked to paint sky, they paint gray. And when the Delhi kids were asked where the waters come from, they said from tap. See how a thought can. So thoughts are the main producers and the directors and the editors and the story writers of the karma. But the moment you are in the present, then it stops charging this force. So there you can choose. So choose to even defeat the idea of predestined. Anyway, it's very complicated. Still there's question?
Can you please explain why so many mantra repetitions?
Why so many mantras? Oh, just It's like so many flip-flops, choice. Just like there are many different people, and people like some long, some short, some, I don't know, easy to pronounce, some difficult to pronounce, some to make themselves calm, others make themselves edgy, all kinds of mantras for different purpose, I guess. That's all I could say right now.
I think in your last answer, you said, let's not go there, but I'm just reading out the questions. What is Tantric Buddhism? Is it compatible with Western culture today? Tantric Buddhism.
Can you repeat that again?
I can. What is Tantric Buddhism? Is it compatible with Western culture today?
Okay. This is an important question again. Again, I would be careful using the word Western, as I said earlier, because, many Chinese and many Indians are much, much, much more Westerner than New Zealanders, especially New Zealanders and Australians. I'm sort of partially teasing you guys, but it's partially true. I will be a little bit provocative, okay? So just so that you can also think. I think it's important to always contemplate. I think critical thinking, analytical thinking, and quest for objectivity, this is good. This is something that we should tap into, I think. And the question is whether Tantric Buddhism is compatible, right? Simon? Simon? Yes. Compatible to the Western mind. Yeah, this is good. Western culture, yeah. I actually don't really know what is Western culture, but I think, okay, let's single out something. The individualism. This is something that we need to contemplate. If individualism is so important, forget Tantric Buddhism. Even the Sharvakayana Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, is a crime, actually. I would use the strong word. Because the whole core of Buddhism is that individual self is an illusion. So cherishing and pampering and, I don't know, coddling of this individual being is a complete opposite from anything to do with any Buddhism, let alone Tantric Buddhism. And Tantric Buddhism, forget it, forget it. The whole point of Buddhism is it actually deconstruct this safety, whatever, measure, padding, all that. So this is something that I think, especially people who are wanting to enter into Buddhism in general, and especially Tantric Buddhism, have to be really, be conscious of. It's one thing to hike rolling English hills. You know, it's fun and it's maybe nothing too much can go wrong. But it's another matter if you want to climb Everest. There you need another preparation. But this is your individual choice. No one, of course, who can force you to do this? But if you are going to do it, then definitely, okay, let's say you want to climb Mount Everest. You should even check whether the map that you have been given is even, you know, updated or not, or expired or not, who actually drew it, who actually printed it, and the guide that you are about to hire or going to go with, whether this guide is trustable or not, who knows? Even minute details like whether this guide has any schizophrenia problem. You know, halfway the Mount Everest, if the guide changes the mind or something, what will you do? All this you need to analyze, and you have to take this full opportunity to analyze. But anyway, not just Tantric Buddhism, just generally Buddhism is so, because the statement of the Buddha, Rangi Gönji Sheni Suji Gondoju, you are your own master. Who else can be your master? This is a very, very important. And yes, because the Buddhists believe that this you self, clinging to this self, is a fundamental problem, right? Actually, I need to define this. Clinging to the self, or cherishing the self, not too bad, okay? Worse is very notion that there is a truly existing self. That's worse. Because that actually is the fundamental. Cherishing, you know, this kind of vanity or this kind of self-worshipping, that comes later. But the very idea that there is a self, but this is not easy to defeat, not at all. As illusory as it may be, as it's really difficult and not that easy to defeat this one. And Buddhism in general is to really deconstruct the notion of self. So I don't know whether all Buddhists are compatible in one way. Something to think about. But as I said, one could always use the power of analysis, critical thinking, contemplation, which the West has so much tradition. And I think that will always really be a big support. Okay, maybe like 2 more questions and then probably people are tired.
If everything is impermanent, how is it possible to accumulate merit?
Very good one, this one. Yeah. Should I give you a very cheeky, classic Buddhist answer, which is because everything is impermanent, that's why you can accumulate merit. That's the cheeky Buddhist answer, always twisting, right? If it is not, if not for impermanence, you cannot even accumulate. So this is why actually impermanence is not only a bad news, as it always seems to be sounding like death and decay and old age. No, You don't have a Ferrari, most of you, I believe you don't have Ferrari. Well, it's possible. Tomorrow you will have, thanks to impermanence. You are depressed right now. Thanks to impermanence, tomorrow you may be over with the depression. But if you are happy, don't get too excited. Because impermanence, things may go wrong. So impermanence, thanks to impermanence, merit is collectible. But I think I want to answer the sort of non-obvious, but I think important, merit. Collecting the merit is not the Buddhist aim, okay? I will quote this, Chandrakirti, very good quotation. He said, those who are idiot, they will do bad things and they will go to hell. Those who are idiot, they will do good things and then go to heaven. Both idiot. Those who are wise will go beyond doing good and doing bad and then achieve liberation. It's a classic Mahayana attitude towards so-called good karma and bad karma. Okay, one more.
Rinpoche, can you say something about relationships? I'm guessing they mean relationships between people.
Okay. You know, I can only repeat everything what I said earlier. I think understanding this impermanence really, really helps relationship. I think it does. A little experience, I have. I think you should look at your lover or family member or children. Every time you look at them, you should really think that this is it. This may be my last time. And I think this may help. Beyond that, also what we just discussed about individualism, this is actually a big obstacle also to the relationship, isn't it? Because it's very complicated. In cherishing the individualism, yet you are trying to have a relationship. And then there's always a hegemony problem, right? You will always like to impose your power to this, whoever the person you are having relationship with. If your partner doesn't have a mouth, doesn't have a butt, doesn't have an ear, you are very lucky. But unfortunately, they do. They have all of that. And many times you choose people who have that and some intelligence. Then things become so complicated. I know I sound very sexist, but this relationship is, and then we have a problem now. Social media, all of that. You can be disloyal to your partner while you are in the toilet. So it's going to be really, really challenging. But all challenges can be turned into something kind of a assistance, isn't it? I think maybe the definition of the relationship can be changed between you and your partner. You can, slowly develop your value and your relationship. What do you mean by that? In the past, if you are living in a, some remote place, having a relationship has a certain necessity. Now, I don't know, maybe it's changed, but maybe there's also similarity. So I don't know, maybe you can also think your relationship as a setting up a company also. It is a sort of a company, isn't it? Like, so all this definition may help, but I'm not answering this properly. So I think we have, I've been talking too much and now I'm losing a little bit of my, what do you call it, cohesiveness. So I think we will end it here. Thank you so much for sitting through. I hope, and as a Buddhist, we do prayers because we think prayers, aspiration is the most powerful because, remember, I said earlier, mind, most powerful. So if your mind is aligned and guided through prayers and aspirations, it has a lot of power. One should never estimate good wish and aspiration of individual. So I'm going to aspire that we are living in this a very interesting time, volatile time. I think I try to do this myself. I think we should really, really not get swayed by one narration, one story, especially your own friend's narration. Now, this may sound very strange. Many times, our friends are more dangerous than our enemies because enemies we hardly meet because they're enemy. They stay very far. You also stay far away from them. So chances of you meeting the enemy is very small, but friends, you meet with them, you talk with them, and then they have their vested interest, you have your vested interest, they have their agendas, they have their fixations. So I think being aware, that is very much staying in the present. So I think this is very important, right? We are a citizen of the world, but the earth, the world is our responsibility. At least we need to really protect. I'm so impressed with New Zealand, how the people really love and care the earth. Please continue to do this, and I aspire that the world will be peaceful, especially individual us. So I will recite an aspiration and then we will end it here tonight. Okay. Sanje peman damda chibi chengawa teni jitengi vitu chitangu teni war tembi chorame jiten sumata shlada mi chubi chu chitamba chugu nuna shijiba teni jitengi vitu shinibe gwendeni tamba chudan tambi no jichu midan nadam haman ji chubi soji choram otsa chitamba jish teni jitengi vitu shisumba oma yedama hit prabhava hit tekita dagat hayavati tekita yunirda evam badi maha sharmana isoha. In case you wonder what I said, loosely, that everything depends on cause, condition, and circumstances. Of all the cause, conditions, and the circumstances and the situation, mind is the most powerful cause and conditions. I aspire that we will tame our mind, train our mind, and most importantly, watch our mind. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Rinpoche, for coming tonight. And thank you so much for visiting Aotearoa. And will you please return as soon as you possibly can? Thank you and good night. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
The next thing I you. Strong and green and healthy